Five, four, three, two, one. Welcome back to Reeling It In. This is your host, Colin Bass. Today we got a special guest lined up for us. He's a longtime friend of mine, go all the way back to Baylor, but also my barber, and he's known by so many people around the Dallas area, as well as an A&M grad. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Luke Spitzer.
What's going on, y'all? I really appreciate my boy Colin Bass having me on the podcast. We're here set up in my living room, and just blessed to be here, man. Thanks for what you've done to share the stories of others, and thanks for including me in this.
Dude, heck yeah. We're in your living room, like you said. We spent the last hour or so setting up the most epic setup I've had yet on a podcast. So I'm excited to get this going.
Chris Williamson is shivering right now as we as we speak. Yeah.
He is shivering, and we were just laughing earlier about all of his technical stuff with the lights and all the science behind it all. And I didn't know that you studied the same kind of stuff. I mean, you got this studio, that your kitchen, your living room, it's all set up just perfectly for us. So.
Hey, just a kid from Crandall trying to put on for the city. That's all I am.
Shout out Crandall. Come on now.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, dude, I'm so excited for you making the time to do this. This is going to be so good. And I think just for me, my background on the podcast, I love to highlight people's different kinds of stories, right? And I think a lot of people go through school, think they got to go get the normal corporate job. Yeah. But what I'm excited to talk to you about today is just your passion for being a barber. And that fires me up. I would drive way out of my way to go get a haircut by you. Not only are you good at it, but you make an incredible experience all the way through it. So just to kick us off, give us a little bit of background on yourself. Tell your listeners, you mentioned Crandall, tell the listeners where you're coming from, who Luke Spitzer is, and then maybe how you made your way into the beginning of your journey in being a barber.
All right, Luke Spitzer. I go by Spitz. That name came along really just in college, and I introduced myself as it now just because that's what I do. Kid from Crandall. We'll fast forward to kind of deciding college and all that. It was my senior year, and had kind of been taking the video thing and had some classes with that.
Tell us about that. You were wanting to be a YouTuber a little bit, or what was the dream with the video thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Just even from a young age with the camera. I mean, there's little videos of me running around with the camera just like 4 years old. Always had a passion with that and storytelling. Did it a little bit in church. And then when I was a freshman, I joined a class. As the years progressed, I got more gear. My senior year, I got an A7 III. And yeah, it's filming. It's filming right now. It's crazy. My parents bought that for me for my 18th birthday.
So I know you had a little bit of video experience, a little bit of barber going on in your mind, and then also you're applying to school. Run us back to that mindset coming out of high school. Who did you want to be? And then where was that path leading you up to as you stepped that first step out of high school into college?
Absolutely. So let's just start with the fall of my senior year. College was in the plan. My parents are both doctors, and so undergrad and the medical school residency all the way to a professional career. My sister was at Baylor. Shout out you Baylor boys. And was going ahead with that. And so the next step for me was to go to college. And I guess the only two options were Baylor and A&M. And I was pursuing a little bit of a career in videography, kind of doing some stuff on the side my senior year, and was really wanting to run with that. But my parents, fortunately for me, were able to pay for my college. And so a lot of kids don't get that opportunity. And kind of with not the pressure of my parents, but with that opportunity and then paying for it, wanted to give that its best shot. So I applied to Baylor. I did not get in. I applied to A&M, and I got the little, the newest.
Class of 2024.
Yes, class of 2024. Yes, in November, the fall of my senior year. That was the plan. But I can't stress enough like how much I didn't have a ton of peace with going. I really didn't want to go. I didn't know what career I wanted. So going in, I wanted to be a dentist. So I got this videography passion, and then I wanted to be a dentist. And when I went to A&M, that didn't really pan out. But so this is leading to my senior spring of my senior year, and we know how this goes. This is spring of 20.
You know how that goes.
And yeah, we know how that goes. The world shut down, and so I started cutting hair. This just kind of bore out of people's hair getting long. The shops were closed. And so I grabbed some clippers that my dad used to shave our dog with and my hair.
No way.
Yeah, so just an old pair of wall clippers. And from that was doing that through May into June, July. And then August came around and I got on Amazon. I ordered all this barber stuff. I just watched a YouTube video, basic barber kit, click, maybe $200 or $300 later, ring light, clippers, combs, all of it. And it showed up on my front door. And then about a week later, I went to Texas A&M, lived at Callaway House, and cut out on my dorm. So that kind of was my high school to college, and then I guess we can get in a little bit of the rest of the story with that.
Dang, but I think that's so cool. Like you had a passion that just kind of came out of literally just like COVID. You had nothing else better to do. People needed a haircut. You're meeting a need, and maybe having a whole lot of extra time on your hands.
Absolutely.
Why not just learn a little hobby at the side?
Yeah.
But before we go too far into your story, something I think that's interesting is that you mentioned you didn't have a lot of peace going into school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, no matter where they're at, whether they're in their career and they're maybe taking a step away or taking their first job and they know they need to take it, they don't have a lot of peace with that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's all like back in college or high school, choosing a college. And there's that idea of like not having a lot of peace. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that feeling and then maybe how you wrestled with that. And then maybe if it opened up in your barber story as well.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite, babe, do you know where the verse comes from? He who began a good work. Is that
Philippians 1:6?
Is it Philippians 1:6? All right. Yeah, that's crazy. All right, that's crazy. Little God moment right there. All right, so this is kind of the foundation verse from one of the foundation verses for my life. I've got about 3. And it's Philippians 1:6. It says, "He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion on the day of Christ's return." And I love that verse because I'm getting a little emotional talking about it.
Come on.
I love that verse because that's a little bit why I didn't have that peace, because this videography thing and this barbering thing and going to Texas A&M, I didn't, and God worked through it. I'm thankful I went to A&M. I don't ever want to say that, but I think the little bit of discontent that I had was this new passion of barbering and videography, incorporating the two, and going to A&M would kind of slow that thing down. And I think that I love the verse because it says, "He who began a good work." And so this is the beginning of the good work that God has continued to do in my life now. But it was the start of it then. And so I just think that unsettling was because I'd be pursuing this thing and school and this club and these friends that didn't solely focus on the work of barbering, the work of videography. And so I think that's why it was a little unsettling. Maybe just to get my nerves off of solely focusing on school to continue to pursue something else. That like there's still something more there.
Yeah. Now, did you know? I mean, you said both your parents are doctors.
Right.
They're like, "Hey, you should go. You could go do anything. You're thinking about maybe being a dentist." Did you know at that moment you were going to be a barber, or like were you still wrestling with being a doctor yourself, or what was that like for you?
I struggle to think back to that moment. I know, as I say, the pressure of the parents to go to college, the pressure of the doctor parents, and I think a lot of people's minds jump to just like, you're going to do this like we did it.
Yeah.
And my parents are the best. They truthfully are. My mom said that I'd be a leader and that whatever I do, as long as I work hard at it, that they would be proud of me. And so to have that love from the parents is amazing. My mom has always noticed that there is something different about me. And I think it's hard as my older sister so clearly wants to be a doctor and loves that, is passionate about that. And I think it's hard to have the second kid not do what you and your spouse do and then raise your daughter to do something. And then this other little guy comes around and he's not doing that. So I think they had a hard time navigating it, but I think that they truthfully did the best job that they could. But to answer your question, I think I always knew that there was something different to my life. I mean, I just think now, like dentist, like going through all this school, like I barely made it through. I barely made it through. Oh my goodness, to be a doctor? No.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to the audio, you got to go back and watch the video of this because Spit's nasty little sour face thinking about doing something else. Man, I mean, it's cool. You're doing something you love.
And I said pediatrics. I just threw something out there, and I get the chance to talk to kids and ask what they want to. There's juniors, seniors in high school. What do you want to do? And I'm really trying to pull something. I want them to like really think of like what they want to do, because I said pediatric dentist just because I tied it with what my parents did. I had a good pediatric dentist, but to stick your hands in kids' mouth for years, like I don't
every day of your life.
Yeah, every day in so much school. I just don't think kids nowadays they're just thinking about the paycheck and the status of being a doctor or a dentist, and they don't think about like what it really takes,
I mean,
So-
yeah, but you're running your hands through somebody's hair all day, so
Hey, that's true.
I'm just giving you a hard time. But tell us more about that. So as you knew, like you said, hey, after school, I'm most likely going to be a barber. I'm going to pursue that head on.
Mhm.
But you're also going to keep going through school. I know you were in a fraternity as well. You were in a bunch of different clubs.
Yes.
Like, tell us about how you balanced that. When you knew your passion was actually even beyond and greater than school,
Mhm.
how did you still prioritize that? And then tell us about, just about your college experience at the same time.
I moved into Callaway House. This is fall of 2020. And I'm cutting hair out of my dorm. I'm living there with my my high school best friend, Tommy. Shout out from Crandall.
Come on now.
And I write on my door, I don't know if I did free haircut. I think I did $5 haircuts. And I cut out on my dorm for the whole year of my freshman year.
Okay, now I gotta stop you.
Yeah.
You're cutting hair out of your dorm.
Yeah.
That's gotta be making a mess.
Yeah.
That's just the first thing that comes to my head. How are you doing that?
I gotta flash some pictures. It was nasty. We would shout out Tommy. Truthfully, we lived on bunk beds, and we had this massive bathroom. God had it made out for me. Like this bathroom, maybe like a handicap bathroom or something. Dude, it has some square footage in the bathroom.
And you're cutting them all in that.
So we had bar stools, and I put a cape around them. I had stuff all over our sink. Tommy probably had hair on his toothbrush. I mean, it was like, shout out Tommy for this. I gave him free haircuts for a very long time.
Never complained.
He recently, this is 4 years later, he's recently started to pay for his haircuts because
that's fair.
Yeah, but I would cut the hair, I would sweep it up and flush it down the toilet. When we moved, so I did this whole year. And then when we moved out, we got like a cleaning fee because there was just too much like hair in the cabinets and everything.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
wow.
But to kind of highlight, I want to go into my fall semester a little bit.
Yeah,
I was kind of just cutting hair for $5, doing class. Mind you, I'm still doing the bio thing, thinking I want to be a
biology. You're a doctor.
Yeah. And I thought I wanted to be a dentist. And I come home and it's just miserable. I didn't really like classes. It was hot. It was COVID. I was dating a girl that I got a wife now. And like, it was just kind of, shout out. It was just kind of messy. And going into that winter break, I went home and my mom likes to tell this and it makes her sad. But I just went home and I said, I'm lonely. And my mom was, if anybody knows me, that's not me. And I just said that. And so like, I like to point that out because even somebody like me going into a new place is just, I just felt lonely and I was honest. And so going into the spring semester, I heard about this Aggie Men's Club thing, which is kind of like the Phi Chi guys of Baylor. Like if you're a Phi Chi guy, think about it like Aggie Men's Club, the Phi Chi of Baylor of Texas A&M. And so I went out for that and I got it. And I was really busy that semester juggling videography, doing a few haircuts for those guys and still doing school and traveling back and forth. And really that Aggie Men's Club, barbering, and church were probably my biggest things at Texas A&M. And that whole school thing kind of trickled down the way. I just kind of finished that thing. So that kind of sets the tone for all of college was barbering, Aggie Men's Club, my church.
Dang. And I know at the same time you're wrestling. I know barber school came in at some point on that journey. So you're doing A&M, maybe even taking a break at some point, if I remember correctly, also doing barber school and doing all that at the same time. Tell us a little bit about that.
This is my summer, my freshman year. I go to Kanakuk camps where I meet Thomas Mason, which is why we're here.
Shout out our boy.
Yeah. So Thomas Mason, a good friend of mine, he was in my wedding, is in Phi Chi with Colin Bass, and that's how we met. And so we'll kind of get in that relationship maybe in a minute. So was cutting hair at this camp in Branson, Missouri. I didn't get to cut any kids because that was against like protocol. But then I'm back to that fall semester. I was Songfest chair for the Aggie Men's Club, and I was cutting out of my garage now. So I had a little bit more real estate. Wasn't living with Tom anymore, and was cutting out of the garage. And then going into my sophomore year, winter break, it was barbering or videography at this moment. And I was kind of 50-50 between the two. And I actually decided that I was maybe going to do this barbering thing after I graduated college, kind of push it down. And what happened was over winter break, I had an internship lined up for the summer. Because I couldn't get vaccinated, my parents, who are doctors, advised me not to get vaccinated. And this film internship was requiring me to. And they eventually said that they would allow it, but came back and said, no, we're not going to do it. So I was kind of left in a pinch, and what am I going to do? Like I prayed about this videography thing, and obviously a hard no. And the next day, I looked into barber school, and then the day following that, my mom and I drive down to College Station and signed me up for barber school, and I started January 17th, which was yesterday. The day of filming this 3 years ago, I started barber school, and yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
In addition to that winter break, I broke up with a girl. I got rejected from an internship, switched my major, and I went to barber school. So big. Yeah.
Dang. And I think that's so cool to highlight. I think even just zooming out a little bit, going back a little bit, your vulnerability just to say, like, coming out of first semester freshman year, like your word was lonely. Like, that's how you felt. And then a whole year later, things are better. You're busier than you've ever been. You didn't feel lonely anymore. But there's more roadblocks, there's more struggles, there's more things you didn't ask for, but like your life continued to open up and sort of get to that place. So I'll let you continue on your journey, but I think it's just really cool to hear that, and to hear that a guy so lively and so popular like yourself that everybody loves to be around even felt those things. And I can agree with that many times in my journey as well, where everybody thinks that, oh, Spitz, he's the life of the party, but at moments, like, you are lonely, we're all lonely, and it's okay to be honest about that. So especially for any listener, like, you're coming into first semester freshman year, maybe you're wrapping up the first semester freshman year, whatever it is, like, that is okay. And just continue the journey and know that those little building blocks are building up to something great. But I'll let you keep on cooking.
Absolutely. Thanks for highlighting that. So then this was barber school. I dropped to just 2 classes for that spring semester. And this is where I started hanging out with the Phi Chi guys, taking some trips to Baylor. I went to 2 Baylor formals, was benching 315, single, just strengthening my relationship with the Lord. I was just working overtime. Like, God really revealed himself to me in this time, going to barber school, meeting a lot of different people. Yeah, so I started barber school 3 years ago to yesterday. So 3 years and 1 day ago, I started barber school.
Wow.
And I did a little bit. So during barber school, I took a total of 12 hours. So I was 3 in the spring, or 6 in the spring, and then another 6 that summer. And then I finished in July. And so starting my junior year all the way through my senior year, I was working part-time, full-time, anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, roughly a week at barber school while finishing up my degree. And so during that time, my junior year, I served on, it was a big leadership year for me, served on as a social chair for Ag Men's Club, planning formals, day parties, social events, big old trip to Houston, and got to serve the group in that capacity. I did Impact, which is helping incoming freshmen get connected to the local church. I was leading a Bible study. And then my senior year, kind of slowed down a little bit, worked a little bit more, was hanging out with my friends. I started dating Lex my junior year after the fall formal. I forgot to mention that. Started dating Lex, my high school crush. And then, I was cutting through, and then I graduated in December of 23. So it's been a year and a month since I graduated college. And so those years weren't super defining. It was a little bit more on the building the skill of cutting hair and networking with people. It wasn't as gung-ho as barber school was, kind of making content and cutting 20 heads of Phi Chi guys one night before formal. That was fun. Part of me wishes that I didn't go as hard with the barbering in college as I did. I started to taper off and realize that towards the end of it. I just mean like spending the time working. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to say. I don't know if I want to go down that trail. It's good and bad because I've had a jump start on my career, but then it's good in that sense, but then it's bad that I work so much that I don't have that emotional side. So maybe I could.
And you almost miss a little bit of like your time in school, time with the boys.
Yeah, time with the boys. I still have peace with it though, so I don't want to touch too much on it. I think it was okay.
Cool. Well, I think it's so fun. You get to touch on Lex. Like you kept smiling and pointing out to our audience member, the first ever live audience member of the Real and Hidden podcast. Shout out Lex Spitzer. Come on out. It's cool to hear your story and to hear the background. And I think for me too, and also for any audience member who's younger than us, who's still going through school, I think it's also cool to hear your story. Like, hey, here's some things that went well in school. Here are the things that went awesome. But here's maybe some regrets and some genuine feelings. Because no matter where you're at in school, there's going to be times where it's not going your way, right? You got to drop a class. You got to maybe take a step back. Maybe your passions change. And it's funny to think that like from senior year Spitz to senior in high school Spitz, those guys are pretty different. And it was just really interesting to hear your background on that story. But now give us, you take your first step out of school, and I think you moved to Dallas after that, and you've been cutting hair for a year now. Yeah. Tell us about what life looks like right now and sort of how your impact is starting to work in Dallas again.
So around April, this is about 3 months after I graduated from college, still living in College Station. And in May was kind of the timeline that everybody was graduating. Lex was graduating. A lot of my friends were getting out of there. And during this time was really praying about a shop and a place to go and a place to potentially start a family. And we did. We have started a family. just the two of us. It's a
got
family.
you.
The two become one. And was praying and looking at places, and I don't know if my audience members know or your audience members know, but there's not really a LinkedIn for the barbering game. And so I kind of just used Instagram and word of mouth, which goes further than LinkedIn. What I ended up doing was just going on Google Maps and looking at different places. I found him. I saw how close it was to the Village Church and was listening to a lot of their sermons around the same time, and put the two and two together, and knew a few people in the area, and they loved it. It's worked out well. So I moved here in May. It's now January, so 8 months late. Is that right? 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 to 8 months later, and it's going exceedingly and abundantly more than I could ask or imagine. So
yeah,
it's really good.
There you are. You're at him barbershop, and I think
right.
it's funny. You said you found him, and I was like, "Who's him?" Him barbershop, and that's where you've been for almost the last year. Yeah. And give us a little bit of rundown on like what the life looks like as a barber, like when you're doing it full time. How many heads you cut a week? How are you like managing those conversations? And then what does it look like to make an impact on people that you see maybe only once every other month?
Yeah, so from May to August, it was a little bit different because Lex and I were still engaged, and it was that summer, kind of my last little hoorah of being a bachelor. Had my bachelor trip, went to Yosemite with my family, went to church, like served at a church camp for a whole week, and I kind of let my boss know, shout out Gincy at the time, that I was going to be doing these things. So it's not really that from May to August, it was kind of in and out, not really working full time. So I'll give you my schedule. We got married in August, on August 3rd, got back around August 16th. So from September to now, it's been kind of the concrete schedule, what I can look back to and have been working full time. So what that looks like, Lex can maybe tell you better than I do, but the shop's open from 10 to 7, and I'll usually get there around, I've been opening my schedule at 8, and I'll usually stay a little past 7. And I'm not working the whole time. That's what, if I tell you I work 6 or 7 days, like I sometimes can be there from 8 to 7, 7:30 some days. But when I'm not cutting hair, I'm calling old friends or working on my computer. It's a commission job, so you're getting paid whenever you're working. So there's a good bit of flexibility with that, but you got to kill something and drag it home every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some days it's slow, some days it's really busy. I can quote some numbers off the top of my head because I've done a little Spotify Wrapped of my barbering this last year. So in June of this year, my second month cutting hair, I did 78 haircuts and 15% were returning. And so that makes sense that May was my first month, so I had a few people coming back. That makes about 8 people coming back to me in June, 15%. And then in December of this year, I had 328 clients and 57% returning. So Whoa. A really big jump. And to look at that on a graph, kind of go from June to September, it's trending up. And so I got some cool sheets and stuff that I kind of track my numbers and new and returning and how many times they come in. And that's been really sweet. Another sweet number that I have is I have 148 unique clients, which means if it's one time, it's a shop or it's a walk-in. If it's 2 times, it's the shop's client. If it's 3 times, it's a unique customer. So I've had 148 people come to me 3 or more times, and that number keeps climbing. So just
wow.
Yeah. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to him who is able to do more abundantly and exceedingly than we could ever ask or imagine, according to the power at work within us." Those numbers and kind of that story I'm getting at is just that scripture is just woven in that, going all the way back to when I started cutting hair for $5 at my shop. So
wow.
Yeah, right out of my apartment. But
wow, and it's so cool to see. Like here we are in January. You just shared those numbers from December, just last month, and like you're already on the growth trajectory that any barber could dream of. Mm-hmm. And I laugh, like any corporate job has LinkedIn that keeps you connected. But when you moved to Dallas, you chose a barbershop and you started zero customers, 0 returners, and you got to build that up. Tell us a little about that process when you're thinking about jumping into a shop. You got a new boss and everything, but also like you've got to go grind and like get repeat clients. How did you plan to do that, and how did that pan out for you?
One, choosing a really good barbershop, and then the second, maybe even more important than that, is a good mentorship. And at the time, I was kind of tied between 2 major mentorships. One's called the New Era of Barbering. Another one is called the 6-Figure Barber Mentorship, and was kind of wrestling with both of them. And eventually it decided with one when I got back from the honeymoon. I kind of talked to Lex about it, And she's like, go with this one. And with that, sticking with the right shop, having the right mentor. Initially, it started. I was reaching out to friends to come see me, and Silent Colin Bass is one of those guys that just come and see me. And one of the biggest perspective shifts in moving here. When I was in college, I was relying a lot on my friends to come in and get haircuts, and not really the people of the town. And whenever I moved here, I kind of had the perspective change that would happen, but it was way smaller than I was thinking. I think I thought that a lot of friends would come, and then in addition to this, but it's been so few friends. And I think in proportion, there's been a good amount of friends, but I've just had so many new clients and new customers coming through the shop of people that live here locally, and have become good friends with a lot of them. And so it's been really sweet to see God move bigger than I thought that he would. So I don't want to diss the friends that have come. There's been a lot of friends that have come, but just proportionally to the amount of people that live here. And that just blew my mind, because in college it was a lot of friends and very few locals. And it's easier to work with people that you don't know when money's around, you know. And it's your broke college friends. It's kind of hard to get a few pennies to get a $40-$50 haircut.
Yeah.
When it's people you don't know, it's a little easier to have that relationship. So
yeah, definitely, and it's a little bit less stressful. I don't know, if I was cutting somebody's hair, I'd rather it be a stranger, and if I mess it up, they could be mad, but I'm never going to see them again. But if it's one of your boys, that would be a mess.
Absolutely.
That'd be a mess. But now it sounds like you finally hit your stride here in Dallas, and you really are running towards the future. Like the sky's the limit, and what it seems like with these numbers that you have.
Yeah.
Tell us about, like, you have something?
No, I was like pointing up.
Oh, come on now. Point it up. Let's go.
Yeah,
come on. Yes, sir. But tell us about the impact. I think you mentioned earlier today, while we were getting chopped up, that you feel like your impact's just starting to begin. You've been to have those repeat clients and building those relationships. Tell us about maybe how you run those relationships, and then some impact that you've already seen and where you hope to go.
The clients that become friends, because when people sit in my chair, especially when I'm saying those unique clients, those 148 people and counting that continue to sit in my chair to pay money. And, you know, some of them probably just have the idea that he's cutting my hair and he doesn't smell bad and he shows up on time. Like, these are all great things. But I want to highlight the people who think of me more than that. And you're one of those guys too. And I appreciate that because you and other people are more to me than that. You know, I do this job to make money, yes, to provide for my family, but really close and second to that is to love people. It's what God called me to do. This career means so much to me. The relationships that I get to build, people that they just, what's up, Spitz? Appreciate it today. Like, that goes so long, and I'm thankful for all that. So.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. And I think, just as you're talking about, I'm so fascinated by your numbers. You have over 300 people who sit in that chair every single month, at least at this point. Yeah. And you get 300 unique conversations to make an impact. And you mentioned a couple of times your faith is important to you. And obviously you can't share that with them immediately and like get into it, get in the depths of it. But you have an opportunity to like genuinely just care and love each person that walks in there. And you have at least 30 minutes with them, sometimes longer if they're getting a fancy little beard trim or something too.
Eyebrows done like you.
Yeah, come on now. You got me looking good today. But tell us about that impact and how you keep building those relationships every month or every 2 weeks whenever they keep coming back in. How do you make those relationships build on top of each other and make it more than just a client and actually make them friends, as you mentioned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd love to say I've done it perfect whenever I'm there at the shop. We as followers of Christ are ambassadors. And so wherever we go, we want people to see Christ through us. And so that's no different than when I'm at work, and I let my guard down a lot. But whenever people are in my chair, always trying to make a point that, blah, 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 I go to church, or, just God bless me today, like pointing out, like just with each person, I try to make some connection with, we go to church, or God did this in my life, or what church do you go to, or making some point, because at the end of the day, I am cutting hair. It is my job.
We kind of covered your story, covered it where you're at the shop right now. I'd love to just hear, I know you said you had a couple of stories about like kids that have come in the chair that have like been super impactful towards you. You feel like made an impact on them.
Yeah.
And then, just highlighting more about like clients becoming friends and just talking about that and how you make those relationships, your quick 30 minutes into something more than just 30 minutes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that it just means the most when I can sense that somebody's just not coming back just for another cut. They catch up with me about something I'd mentioned the last time. And I tend to remember a lot of things, but it means a lot when somebody does for me. I found as just a human, one of the best ways to love people is just to show up. I mean, you saw that all the way in Waco. I would pull up, go down I-6, not I-6, but Highway 6, and just show up at the house. You're like, yo, Spitz is in town.
Spitz is in town.
My mom, my grandparents, and probably even their parents, it goes back a long way of people showing up for me. And it's been just one of the easiest ways that I can love other people. What we have is our time right now, Alexa and I's time. No kids in a new place, and we've got a lot of time. One of those things is I got a lot of clients that play ball. I cut their dad and their son. I've been able to go to a football game. I've been able to go to some basketball games. I've taken some clients to go golf. I say, and this has just hit me. I keep saying client, but it's friend at this point. Truthfully, I see these people multiple times a month, every other month, and I don't see my friends that much. And so these clients have become friends. And I'm gonna continue to refer to them on this podcast as clients, just to kind of distinguish. But they really have. They've become friends. And just this Thursday, I was at a basketball game of one of my clients' friends, and took a little fun picture with them after the game. And his mom had posted that, and you don't always, and I don't need it. I don't need the recognition for it, but it's nice when it's there. And she just wrote some kind words about me, acknowledging that I did show up, and I try, I really do. And so it's a reminder to me to recognize other people's kindness to me. And so I'm thankful for you for having me on today and being able to say, I really am. It means a lot. It's freaking 10:04 in my apartment on a Saturday, and we're talking, so I really appreciate it.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. It gets me fired up because it's cool to see that your work is greater than just your 9 to 5, greater than just your career, greater than just your paycheck. Like you see it as more than that. And I appreciate you wanting to share this time this evening as well, and like be able to share your story, because when I look at the way that you've become a barber and the way that you live that out, it's way different than I see anyone else living out their career. And I think even in sales, I talk to probably 300 people a month on the phone, but I don't take the same priority to build a relationship with them and get as deep as you get to go. And it's really cool that you get to be with them in person. You get to have an intimate moment, a private conversation, one-on-one for 30 minutes with that many people. But I love that you highlighted that going to that football game this week, because you didn't have to do that. You probably had 1,000 other things you could have been doing. But like, that's what's meaningful to you. That's where you find fulfillment in. It's like making your work greater than yourself. And I think like, as you look out in your future, look out and like who Spitz wants to become over the next couple of years, like how do you hope to do that again? Are there ways that you can make a deeper impact the longer that you're in the chair, the longer that you're cutting hair?
It's funny. Lex said maybe just yesterday, like we're next. Like we've been going to a few basketball games. I've been taking a few guys to go golf, and she just said, "Where's next?" And so we'll just kind of see where the Lord leads. I've just had so many people in the bleachers for me, cheering me on, and I just get to hear some of these kids' stories, and some of them are fortunate where their parents and grandparents are in the stand, and then there I am too. But we've been at some games where it's us and Dad, and so. Just continue to see where the Lord leads these relationships. I mean, it's just, you show up for these people, and it's crazy, just the response back. Like these kids are texting me their highlights like before they even posted on the Instagram. And so I just continue to hope to be intentional with them, with the time with them in the chair outside, and just seeing, these kids are freshmen in high school, 8th graders. We got a lot. You talk about 5 years, a lot can happen in 5 years. Some of these kids are just going to be still in high school still. So just kind of seeing where those go. So
I love that. I love that. And I think it's so cool. You're getting to like almost be a mentor to these young kids who are just beginning to become men themselves. And they look up to you in a lot of ways. Like you said, they're showing you your highlight reel before they even drop that. I guess you mentioned your faith, but why do you make such an emphasis to make your job so meaningful? I mean, I'm in your shop. I know I've had probably hundreds of haircuts in my life. Very few barbers even ask my name and ask what I'm going to do this weekend and want to have a conversation. Why do you care so much, and why do you want to make an impact in what you do?
It's all to bring him glory and me joy, and it brings me a lot of joy, and so I hope it brings him a lot of glory. I think also to the parable of the talents. I don't know if you've heard that one on this podcast. I like to think that I've just been given 5 talents, and I want to bring back 10 to the king because that's what he deserves. Stuck in the career, they don't like it, or my dad had a great career and he's disabled now, and so I'm just giving so much, and I want to return tenfold and do a bunch of other things and become Hermosi and do everything, bro. I want to keep going.
Dude, come on. I love that. And it's such an easy way to do that, but you make such a priority in your life, and I think that's so special.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. Now I know we're just getting to where you are right now. Like, tell us a little about where you hope to go. I know maybe sometime in a couple of years or so, you'll maybe want to have your own shop. And then I know there's even dreams bigger than that. Tell us a little bit about that, and what is the next step, or what is like goal setting look like for a barber?
I would love to open a shop. I know that's a lot of people's barber's dream is to own their own shop, but I've been at barber school, 4.0 Cuts, 101 Barber Company, and now Hen Barber. And I look at what's next, and it's to open my own. And I've taken little mental notes and actually written some things down of some things I want to do better, some things I want to do different, some things I want to keep. I've worked with a lot of good people and great bosses. Yeah, absolutely want to run a shop. I want to have effective team meetings, one where I can encourage my barbers. I want to have awards. I want to show a lot of gratitude to my workers. I want to create an environment where I would have wanted to work. I want to actually use my degree in leadership and development and do that for some barbers in this industry, and do that so people can be a little bit less risky. I want to provide for people's families, bring clients in the door so they can cut their hair and have a successful career. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I honestly don't know what's past that. That's a lot to do now. And then I'll kind of see what happens. That. So that would kind of be impacting the now and the local. I'd love to continue to get on social media and impact everywhere else. So
yeah, no, it's a passion of yours, the leadership and development and pouring into those people. You're pouring into your clients right now, but I think how much greater could you pour into people who are pouring out?
Yeah.
And like you said, like I never thought about this till you brought it up, but for a lot of men, I mean, guys our age, the average time on social media, it's like or on their phone over 10 hours a day. Crazy. And they're sitting in your chair for 30 minutes straight without a phone. I mean, you could be on your phone, but like probably not going to be on your phone. And like you're man to man right there, and you get to have an impact and have a genuine conversation with another dude. Maybe you're not going to get the deepest talk where you're talking about things that are going wrong in your life and things you need help with, but like man to man, have a heck of an opportunity to impact people like that. And I'm interested to hear, like, as you hope to pour into these guys that are in your shop one day, what would you do differently, or what would you do? What are the things behind the scenes to make a shop run more efficiently? You mentioned maybe some awards, and different things like that, but what behind the scenes would you want to do to make your shop so special for the guys that would be working for you maybe one day here in the future?
I love that question because it gets to kind of crack open my brain, and I've been thinking about these things. So I'll kind of name off a few. I think the best leaders have done it before. I think Chick-fil-A does a phenomenal job. They have their owners and operators go through like boot camp for like 2 years, flipping fries, making sandwiches, doing drive-through, cleaning, doing everything. And I think why a successful franchise like that, why would I be any different? And so recently, Lex will know, I mean, I'm at the shop. December 23rd, I got at the shop at 8, and I didn't leave till 10. And I did 2 haircuts every hour. So that was 28. Yeah, that's right, 28. And so I want to be the leader that's done that. And so I feel like I'm kind of getting some of those things going and finally an opportunity to cut 28 heads. I mean, that's such a blessing. I've never been able to do that. So being a leader that's done it before, it's a lot easier to follow somebody like that. And I just want to go back to gratitude. Like encouragement, especially as a man, is just kind of like, oh, you're glazing. Oh, you're like, but encourage, like words of affirmation are one of the love languages, and that hits for me, and I know it hits for a lot of people that don't normally say it. And in the barbershop I've seen, it's just like just kind of dogging on each other, being sarcastic all day, and like a little bit of encouragement goes a long way.
And now, as you look at like you're going to make an impact, pouring into all these guys that are going to be working for you, but also you mentioned earlier you got to have people pouring into you, and I think I love to ask like who is your support system and who is like celebrating who Spitz is becoming in the barbershop every single day.
Yeah, so I've said from the beginning of this podcast that my parents have just been so steadfast in this journey of I know they get so many like, yo, you went to med school, you did this, and like is he like snooping like to some level? Like your son Luke, like he's a barber? Are you sure? And like I've heard them kind of like say some stories like that, but they just been the biggest support. I said from the beginning, they just want me to work hard at whatever I do, and I look at where they were at their journey at this age and try to match that. You know, they were talking about them being in residency and staying up late and going in early and not sleeping much. And I think part of that's like a little deep down in me that I'm trying to do that. And so they've just been outstanding support. Yeah, one of the biggest supports is my sweet wife, Lex. I'll back up a little bit. I don't know if I should say this, but the reason I broke up with the last girlfriend's a big reason was I saw that, you know, one day when I want to have kids, and I didn't want my girls to grow up like them. And in choosing my spouse, I want somebody who loves Jesus more than anything, more than me. And part of that too is I want my kids, my boys, my girls. I want my girls to look just like my wife. And it's been sweet to see in my career. Like commitment's just such a hard thing to do, and people don't even. I mean, people got like baby mamas, and I got me a girl, and I've got me a wife, and that's who I go back to. I've talked a lot about barbering and my me and this, and she's my better half. I've been pushed in so many ways, a little bit more sweeter, a little bit more gentle, a little bit more kind. It's all been because of her, and so. I'm just excited for where the future goes. I'd like to say it's me, it's God, and it's been from the encouragement of that girl over there.
Man, we're all crying in the club.
Yeah.
Everybody's tearing up. We got Spitz tearing up. We got our first audience member ever tearing up. Man, it's so cool to be able to hear the genuineness in your voice, because I think a lot of time in our society we've lost that. Like not everybody can say that. Not every married man will say that they gave all their support to their wife and that they feel supported by their wife, let alone anybody who's not married anymore, you know? And I think that's super, super special. And it's cool to see that you're building a foundation for you and your wife, but also I saw on the vision board, like you want to create a family as well. And like you're going to build something so much more powerful on top of this idea of being a barber. And I think that's another thing that we miss when we're talking about our career and talking about who we want to become, is that like, yes, barbering is what you do, maybe 5, 9, 12 hours a day. But it's for a greater purpose. And I'd love to hear, like you mentioned your goals for the barbershop one day, but like, what are your goals for your family? Where do you see yourself going in 5 or 10 years as you build out, not just your career, but your home and physical life here too?
Yeah, I like that question. I was talking about that today or yesterday. I was golfing with a guy, and I was talking about like the next step of owning a shop. And I just want my kids someday to, like, my dad owns a shop. Like it's not he's worked someplace for all these years. That I want to make them proud. I want to make them strive. I mean, my parents went to medical school and then residency and have had fantastic careers, and like they've just set the bar high, and I want to continue to do that for my family. Lex and I want a lot of kids, and we want to have a lot of fun. We want to love Jesus a lot and love our kids. We want them to work hard. We want them to be kind. We want them to love themselves. This business will create opportunities for that, and we just hope to be a blessing and generous.
Go. And you mentioned being generous, and so I have to ask, like, are there any cool ways you've been able to give so far in your career? I know it's early, but I saw on your board one of the things is tithing, even if it's just a little bit. What do you like to give to right now, and what do you hope to give to in the long run?
But each month we've been faithful to tithe, and we've been able to give, because we aren't at a church right now, we've been able to give some good amount of money to some friends, some missionaries. It's not our money to begin with, and so it's been a blessing to give back to what's not ours.
That's cool, and I think that's super special to hear because we're young. You're not making a ton of money. You're not overflowing with cash. You're just getting married. There's plenty of excuses to say, hey, like I don't have enough money to give right now, but I will when I have X amount. But as the saying goes, if you don't start now, you're never going to start.
Yeah.
And I think that's very cool to highlight. Like no matter where it is, if you're listening and you're inspired to give, like it doesn't really matter where it goes. It doesn't have to exactly be your church. It just has to be somewhere for you to let go and like let God do a little movement. And I love what you highlight there too. Like it's not your money to begin with, right? Like it was all a gift, and it is a gift that we were able to give again, which is pretty cool. As we begin to wrap up here, Spitz, I just want to go back. Like we started all the way back of you being in school, having this little dream of being a barber, and you joked that you were having to pay people to cut their hair. Like you've learned so much, and you have some big dreams for what the future could hold. If you could go back and talk to Spitz just in the beginning of this dream, what would you want to tell him? What advice would you need to hear?
Even as being on this podcast and talking about my story, it brings back a lot of memories. And I've heard it said, and it's so true, even now, just talking about this, that I was not always walking with God, but he was walking with me. And sometimes I didn't reach out my right hand, but when I did, he was there. And when I didn't, he still was there. And I would just encourage myself to hold his hand the whole time. And speaking to that younger Spitz, I'm speaking to me now that's saying God's still here and walking with me. I need to hold his hand, continue to do that because it's what's good for my family. It's what's good for me.
It's really cool to hear your open and honesty in that because as we heard the whole podcast, it seems like you're very rooted in your faith. It's definitely a priority in your life. But for you to even admit, we can be holding his hand a little tighter. We cannot let go at certain moments. I think it's a good reminder for me to hear, a good reminder for any of our listeners to hear as they're starting their faith journey, walking in there and they're walking strong with the Lord, or continuing it and running with God. So I love that advice, and I think this time has been so special to just wrap up your whole story in one little piece of content that we can share in so many different ways, and just to see where you're going to go next is super exciting. Now, as we wrap up here, any last words of advice for any aspiring barbers or any of our listeners tuning in today?
All right, the thing I want to leave people with is something special to me for 2025. And over Christmas break, I was in Ohio, and my great uncle got really sick. And it was the closest person to die from me in my whole life. And I don't say that to sound sad or morbid. There will be a lot more to come. But I was literally at this man's deathbed, and he's a good man. He's in heaven now. And I leaned down, and he just said, "Thanks for coming." And I think we can take that and run with that it doesn't take a lot. We just need to show up and just be there. Spitz was there. Colin was there. We don't have to bring flowers or bring the right thing, but just people know he was there. But yeah, Jesus did. Jesus showed up for people, and so we can. And then the second thing is I want to say, just be reminded, this weekend I was at a men's conference, and it was talking a lot about being created in God's image, and something that blew my mind, and it's in Genesis 1, and that God created the heavens and the earth. And it says that we're created in his image. Somebody that made the heavens and the earth created us. And we each have these unique gifts and capacities. I've got a little bit of dyslexia, so I'm not going to be writing any books anytime soon or being a audiobook reader. That's not going to be in my DNA, but I can be a barber. I can be a coach. I can make goofy content. So I would encourage you, the artist made you in his image, who made the heavens and the earth, the very thing that you're holding right now or you're listening to this on. He made that, and he made you, and he made us all unique in our own ways, and he loves us.
Wow, how powerful of a thing to leave our listeners with. Like, thank you for being here. And I think I can thank all of our listeners for showing up. But no matter what your job is or what you feel like you're called to, or even what you're being invited to, like that is the simplest calling. It's just showing up for the people who love you, showing up for the people who need you, showing up for those that are in your life and that have been purposely planted in your life, even when you might not even know why. And it can be pretty inconvenient sometimes.
Absolutely.
And to go out of your way for people who need it. But like, it is just your presence that matters the most. And you really shouldn't be too busy just to show up. And I think I can fall to that a lot of times. So I thank you. Thank you a lot for sharing that and being open with that story. And yeah, prayers for your family, prayers for your uncle.
Oh, that's all good.
But
It's
cool.
all good. It was a
It's
learning
cool.
moment. He's in heaven, brother.
He's up there.
Yes,
He's up
absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
No, Spitz. Well, thank you for the time this afternoon, this evening, and just having so much fun with me. Now, as we wrap up, like, where can our listeners like learn more about you, follow you? Maybe if they want to come get a little cut from you, where can they hit you up?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. I think my wife just said that TikTok got taken down. So I had a little bit of TikTok there, but don't we go in there? It's at Spitz Cuts on Instagram, SPITZCUTS. Yeah, I'm in Highland Village, Texas, just south of Denton, in between Denton and Dallas. You can come get a cut. Man, you can text me if you want, 214-304-8871, and let me know how I did on the podcast. But yeah,
let's go.
Colin, thanks for having me, bro. This has been a joy. I'm excited to look back on these for years to come. My little kids will be watching, who's that Colin guy, and maybe yours, like, I don't know. What do you want to be doing? One time, what do you want to do?
Who knows? Hopefully some of this one day is my full career, speaking a little bit, writing a little bit, and just getting to share people's stories, because that's what matters to me most.
I want to say a little bit of it. I love this. Chris Williamson. Is that how you say it? Chris Williamson?
Right.
Chris Williamson. Like, it was his turn, and it, like, right now it's still his turn. But like, who's gonna follow him? Like, it's got to be somebody. It's got to be. It has to be somebody. And there's a big barber named like Chris Basio, and he's gonna get old someday and outdated. And like, who's it gonna be?
Who's it gonna be?
Yeah,
it's gonna be you.
Yeah. It's gotta be like who else? Like, I'm not saying that pridefully, but like, I want to. There was no Chris Williamson, there was no podcaster. He made it. So we get a pioneer that goes back to creating this image,
There we go.
Like, there was a garden, and Noah built a freaking ark, and then there was like David, and we could keep going, but I'm proud of you. I'm excited to see what you do, brother. I mean, you're going to just keep this up. Who else? Who else could do it?
Man, I'm fired up. And it's gonna be cool to see where we both go. And I know that as long as God keeps us both in Dallas, we'll be running back and forth. And if anybody wants to see us, they can hang out in your chair, because I'll be there at least every other month or so.
Hey,
so come on now. Well, there we go. Thank you again for the time.
Yeah, thank you, brother. This is fun.
Let's go.
Woo!
Let's go, my man. We did it.
I feel so different when we're on that.
Dude, yeah.
Oh yeah. That was good, bro.
Dude, that's
some good bits in it. That was definitely the spirit.
There's some fire
The
bits in
spirit
there.
was moving, man. I need to practice some of my speaking stuff.
No, that was awesome.